On today's episode, we are going to be answering a question that we've actually gotten numerous times, but an email came in recently asking us, why do we not have more positive emotions or more options for different ways to experience joy on our core emotion wheel? This partner emailed in and said, I want to know more of what brings my wife peace or hope in her day, and how can I know that if it's not on the core emotion wheel? And so today we're going to be talking about what emotions, why they're there, and about that joy. How can we figure out more joy in our lives? So welcome to the Connection Codes podcast. This is the podcast that breaks open our emotion, that takes us from being disconnected to connected in our relationships and in ourselves. I am your host, Tara Wages, and joining me is marriage and family therapist, clinical sexologist, Dr. Glenn Hill, and his incredible wife and partner, Phyllis Hill. And together, they have founded the Connection Codes, which is the guide to human connection. And we're so glad you're here.
Yes. Hello, world. Welcome.
Yes.
Hi, friends. Well, sometimes I think, have we not already talked about this? But when questions come in from our listeners, we do really take those seriously. So thank you for sending in questions, for wanting us to dig deeper, because part of it too is that it never hurts to kind of circle back around and to understand the science behind it, to understand, and a reminder too that, our brains fire emotion. There's a part of our brain that fires emotion. And I do think it'd be so cool someday to be able to actually go into a laboratory and have us hooked up to a brain scan, bring in a film crew and show just this reality. Like, it's not something we're making up. This is for real. And that you can see on a brain scan what is happening. And maybe for you to be able to relate, I always think about the movies that I see that have a lie detector test and how the thing just goes like this, and I think, wow, personally, I've never done a brain scan, or I've never, done anything like that to see what's going on in my brain. But I think that to understand there is a joy region in our brain. And I know that I think the question is more like in understanding each other. Some people don't feel like they can even access the joy region of their brain.
Yes.
And that is an interesting idea of that understanding. And I know that I've shared really openly about my journey with all of this. And for me to realize anger is a really hard one for me to access. And I really dug into that at the beginning of this year to figure out what was going on with that, what was happening with me, and realized that a lot of it is I had to go all the way back to the beginning, right? And to understand that the definition of anger for me came from childhood experiences of seeing my older brothers fight and get escalated, and they're fighting and physical, and that there was a lot of fear in that for me.
Right.
And so I saw anger as that is anger, and I don't want anything to do with that. And I think that it kind of affected me being able to tune in to just core level anger for myself, which is such a driver, right? Yeah. And if you don't have that, that we're missing out. We're missing out on the positive of core level anger that drives us to accomplish things, to do things, to push for things. And I've just had to discover that. So joy, we've definitely have had sessions with people who go, I don't feel joy.
Yeah.
And often it's the digging. What happens for that person?
Yeah, and one of the first named psychological disorders that we know of was Hippocrates called it anhedonia, which is the inability to experience joy. And so we sit with lots of people that's the case, and not a large percentage of the population, but numerous people. But as they learn the connection codes, as they do the core emotion well, they start realizing what it is, what it looks like, what it feels like, and they are able to connect. I sat with a couple, I think day before yesterday, that he deals with anhedonia, and that has really begun shifting for him the last few weeks. And he was just so cute talking about it. He's like, I've started to feel joy. And he was experiencing it the whole time. He just wasn't aware
Right.
of it. And that's just really remarkable. But anyway, so back to the wheel. And the reason there's only, and again, we view that all emotions are not positive or neutral. They just are. They just exist, just like oxygen. There's not positive oxygen or negative oxygen. There's just oxygen. So emotion is not positive or negative. It's just a consultant, a messenger. It's just trying to help us to live life successfully, to be the best version of ourselves. But this is just science. There are 5 neural regions associated with emotion that are the command center for emotion. Emotion occurs throughout the body. But the limbic system is basically the command center that kind of everything ends up processing through the limbic system. Well, there's just 5 regions. So why do you only have 2 lungs? It seems like you probably should have 6 or 8. Well, you only have 2. I don't know. Are there some people on the planet that just have 1, maybe whether surgically or whatever? Well, yeah, but people just have 2 lungs. We didn't vote for that. The vast majority of people, we have 5 fingers. Yes, there are people that have 3 and have 6, but humans have 5 fingers. Well, why not 10 per hand, or why not 6 or 8? That's just the way it is. Why do we breathe oxygen and not ice cream? That'd be fun. We breathe ice cream. Well, we just don't. So these are just science things. The 5 regions: anger, pleasure, pain, disgust, and fear. That's just what's there. I don't care at all if somebody, when they're sharing the wheel, says 5 different joy points for the day. Awesome. Say, I felt joy about this. It was really peaceful for me. I felt a lot of joy about this. I felt a lot of hope in it. Great. Absolutely. Have at it. But we're just talking about the science of it. There's just like with fear, there's lots and lots of fear words: hesitation, uncertainty, apprehension, terrified, petrified, dread. Well, those are all fear words. But they all fire in the fear region of the brain. That we don't have an apprehension section of the brain. We just have the fear, and they're all firing in the brain. It's just a matter of levels and combinations of those core emotions.
Just to explain, so there's 5 regions, but we have 8 core emotions on the wheel because the pain region is broken down into 3 because on a brain scan they look differently.
Exactly.
So that's what's important to understand. It's just through brain scanning that we know. So when joy fires, there's not different reactions. It's like joy fires simply, like as in joy. Now, what I think is interesting, we were with a couple on a session recently, and he said, I have a really hard time identifying hurt unless it's physical hurt. So he was doing the wheel with us and his wife, and he was like, hurt. Oh man, hurt. I only associate that with physical pain. And right now I'm not in physical pain. And so, but we didn't move on. Like we just gave him a few seconds. And then, but what was interesting to me is that he had already shared a painful interaction with his wife. And in my mind, I'm immediately going, I think you were hurt.
Right.
I didn't say anything. We just waited for him. He finally got there and he said, you know what? Hold on. I felt really hurt when that happened between us. And so I think sometimes we, like, if joy is the one where either we are not sure. And it's interesting when someone writes in, I always think, well, we don't really know what's behind that question. Because it was almost like, I think the question was him wanting to get to know his wife better. And sometimes I think it can be an identity thing where almost kind of that loss of identity. We talk about that I'm not always good at verbally saying things. We talked about this on the cruise actually, where, cause we had hours and hours of talking over gin rummy, mind you, and eating lots of food and doing a lot of fun things, but talked a ton. And I think Glenn loses identity when I don't acknowledge in a joyful way. Like I feel so much joy being on this cruise with you. Like he needs to hear that from me. Or sometimes I really miss it because he does things for me and I don't realize he does them for me. Like, and so then I'm like, well, was the cruise my idea, your idea, or our idea? Are you here because I wanted to be here, or are you also wanting to be here? Because I sometimes go, I didn't know I was supposed to, like, I didn't know to acknowledge this in a ooh, thank you for being here with me was the thing.
Yeah.
But see, I think it all fits under identity. So back to this husband who's going, I want to know more of the joy points. Like I want to know where she finds her hope and where she finds her peace. Well, maybe the underlying thing is that you're just not sure. Like what you see maybe is very obviously her sadness or her hurt, but you don't very obviously see her joy. And yet I think that's not the issue isn't the wheel. It's more of a in-depth, even an acknowledgement. Like I lose identity when I don't hear the joy points of your life.
Yeah.
I don't need just one. I'd love to have 10,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And to realize, okay, she may be more like me, just kind of, I just don't feel like I'm good at that, or I don't say it enough. You know, Glenn he loses identity when I'm not expressive during the day. And so I think sometimes we have to know maybe the layer behind the question sometimes, you know, and what is really the thing. But I do know that just like with the husband who said, man, I only put hurt with when it's a physical versus emotional. So it's really hard for him to tune in that part of his life. And yet when he shares narratives, I'm like, ooh, it sounds like hurt all over that, you know?
Right.
So
Yeah. I relate a lot to the not recognizing joy in recent years of my life. And it's something that hit me really this last year. I'm a very joyful person. I feel like I have a lot of joy. I think that, especially when I'm around certain people, I don't think that I'm like an Eeyore, you know, type personality, but it hit me that I don't acknowledge that this is joy that I'm experiencing. And especially with my kids. I think that they get the least joyful parts of me because when I'm with them, I'm in a hurry to get somewhere. We're doing something. We need to get the house in order because people are coming over. There's more logistics with my kids than honestly anyone else on earth. And I have a lot of fear of saying that for the homeschool, you know, for other moms that are like, well, then you're parenting wrong. I'm scared there's going to be judgment in that for me. But I recognize that I am not portraying joy to them very often. So that is something that now I am really trying to tune into. And I also have a child who has picked up this same trait from me, I noticed. And for a long time, I had a hard time identifying their joy on the wheel. And so we've been much more proactive recently about saying our joys in the moment more actively. Or like I have another kid who's just super, super joyful, you know. And we're like, oh, this is joy. Because he'd be like, I'm happy. And I'm trying to be like, joy. Because I really want to nail that in for myself. And now I've noticed this like flip for me and for my other kid. Like now when I do the wheel with them, they'll name 4 or 5 joys every night. They went from being like, I don't know, nothing brought me joy today, to now like 4 or 5 because we've been practicing it more and more and more. And for myself, I'm able to really tune in and create that space. So we even have our Alexa every single night. Wes just turned it on to where we'll say, Alexa, good night. She locks our house up. She locks our car door. She turns all the lights off and she'll say, now smile and think of a moment that brought you joy today.
wow.
And so we are trying to put these reminders around our home to experience joy, because while I do recognize that all emotions are neutral, they are all equal. They are there to guide us. You've said it before. Joy is the goal.
Yeah,
joy
good.
feels good, and joy brings gratitude and peace, and it lifts our spirits. And so if we can put things around us to amplify that joy and set us up for success in that joy, then I think that it will add so much value to our relationship and to our home. And so one of the things that I have previously done is make a list of all the things that bring me joy. So, and I would put things either in my home or like the background of my computer or my phone, something from that list that will bring me joy. So I'm constantly trying to spark joy in my life and share that.
Yeah. And there's not really science to support this that I know of, but the other core emotions are supporting our joy experience. You know, the reason you feel fear about going northbound on the southbound side of the interstate is because if you do that, you're going to be out of joy pretty quickly because you're going to be in the back of an ambulance or worse. So that's my theory, is that the other core emotions are working on our behalf to protect us, to keep us in joy.
Wow, yeah.
And we want our children to feel fear, because if they never feel fear, and again, it doesn't mean they can't do wild, crazy things. They certainly can. But if they never feel fear, they're going to be out of joy really quickly. And we will be out of joy because we're going to, again, be in the back of the ambulance with them. So the other core, if I don't ever feel guilt, I just keep wounding this woman,
Yeah.
my best friend, the person that's more valuable to me than anybody else on the planet. I don't feel guilt, so I just keep damaging her. Well, I'm going to be out of joy really quickly, because she's not going to want to be with me. She's not going to want to be involved with me, close to me at all.
Yeah.
So the other core emotions are actually helping us to stay in joy.
That's really interesting. I like that a lot.
Well, and to me, it goes back to what we often talk about is the core emotion wheel. And, if you're new to this or it's the first time you've heard the podcast, go to our website because you can get a free download of it. But it's that's my story. Like, I am learning to tune into myself and to understand all 8 emotions.
Yeah.
And, I was definitely raised where you choose joy. Literally, choose joy. And the problem with that is, if joy isn't firing in your brain and sadness is, and you don't acknowledge the sadness and you're just beating yourself up saying, just choose joy. It's like, okay, so then I'm not releasing any of the other emotions.
Right.
I'm stuffing them down into my toes. Eventually my toes get full, and then I'm stuffing them into my ankles, and on we go. And eventually your body explodes. I mean, really, if we don't let these emotions out. And so it's so important to understand the science of our bodies. If you're faith-based, you believe God created your body, then understand this is on purpose.
Yeah.
This is not just something that man made, this is not a man-made theory. This actually is your brain, and this is how your body's made. And you've got to,
even if somebody says there is no God, it's still just true. I mean, you don't get to decide what you're going to breathe today based on whether or not you believe in God. You're going to breathe oxygen if you're going to survive the day. So it has nothing to do with the faith issue. You will breathe oxygen. Well, these emotions are real for the atheist, the Buddhist, the Muslim, the Christian, whoever. It doesn't matter. This is the human condition, which, again, we always say is part of the power of the connection codes. It's just based on the human condition. It's not based on a theory or a philosophy or a personality profile. This is how humans function, regardless of what your faith or non-faith positioning is.
Yeah.
I think I interrupted you. Sorry.
But with you talking about the will, I was thinking that the point of the will is to be simple and to be able to be done in 4 minutes. That's such a huge part of it. And so if we continue to just add all of these other emotions to it, it's no longer simple. In fact, Wes recently was at a business event, and they were like, well, which emotion are you feeling? And it was a list of 100 emotions. And he was like, how do you even pick what you're feeling?
It's 5 to 10 minutes just to read through
just
them
to
all.
read through them all, and then to try to figure out which one it is. And so with that, knowing each of those that are on there are a specific region, or they are firing differently, or they're presenting differently, there's a reason each of those is chosen.
Yeah, and 2 things about that. Number one, I'm drawing a blank. Dang it. It was brilliant. What was it? That's the reason. And each of the rules of the wheel are emphatic. We researched this exhaustively, and they're on purpose. They're just not random suggestions. One of those is that you go through all 8 core emotions. Don't skip any. So, and we sit with couples all the time where, whatever, the guy will say, let's see, hurt. I can't think of any hurt. Well, we don't let them skip it. We go, oh, well, when's the last time? And we never interrupt somebody's wheel except when we're coaching them to do the wheel. We go, when's the last time you felt hurt? And he's like, I don't know. Well, it's a big time you felt hurt. Because if we skip the emotion, then you're not training yourself. It's kind of like skipping, whatever. If you're a big workout person, you skip leg day. Well, then your legs never get exercised. You're only building your upper body. So we can't skip. We want all the muscles to be exercised. So we don't ever skip an emotion. You either do what's current, the last time, a big time, and literally, worst case scenario, you just make something I felt joy last week when I won the lottery. Well, I didn't actually win the lottery, but that would be a joy experience for me. So I'm just tuning in. I'm retraining my brain to recognize the core emotions. And I said there were two things, and now I forgot the second one. Word. What's happening here?
Well, but I like what you had said earlier too, with the will, especially now, because framing it from the perspective that those emotions that are on there, the goal is to point you back to joy. The goal is to protect your joy. And so we hear from people, they're like, oh, I don't want to do it. It's just this negative experience. You want me to feel all of these like painful or emotions or like hurting emotions. But if you can view it in the way of the whole goal is to work through it, to protect yourself from the joy, because you can't feel the joy if you don't process the sad, what Phyllis said earlier. Because otherwise that sad is just going to get stuffed down in, and your joy will be surface. It's not going to be deep and lasting joy.
Sorry.
No, you're great.
Well, and again, we're not trying to get people to feel hurt. They already feel hurt. Every human on the planet feels hurt at some point in their life. So we're not trying to get them to feel shame. They already experience shame. We're trying to help them to process through the shame. And I remember the other thing. Oh, please don't tell me I forgot it again. What is wrong with me?
Glenn, what is happening?
Is it a B12 vitamin issue? I don't know what's happening.
It's not jet lag. It's cruise lag.
It's
having
boat
cruise
lag.
lag.
Is there such a thing? I don't know. It'll come to me in a second. I'll probably interrupt you when it comes to me again.
Well, I was going to suggest us going ahead and going.
Oh, I remember now.
Okay.
Okay, so here's what the research has shown. And again, humans are so complex. It's very difficult to quantify and to say, oh, this is causation. We know for sure 100% that this is what happens for every human on the planet because there's 8 billion of us. But what we have found is that if I say to Phyllis, babe, that was so great. Thanks for doing that. Well, that's not wrong. That's not an evil thing to say. But it is not as connecting as if I say to her, babe, I felt so much joy in that. And what the research showed was that it actually tickles the pleasure center of her brain whenever I convey the core emotions. Not the secondary or tertiary emotions, but the core, the primary emotion. And whenever I say to her, I felt hurt, versus saying, that bothered me. Well, that's true. It did bother me, but she doesn't have a bothered region of her brain. So that doesn't tune in nearly as much. And again, what the research showed is when we use the 8 core emotions, and I'm not saying that there are no other words that you can use or that will be connecting, but the 8 core emotions connect people. The research is pretty emphatic in that there's a distinct difference between me saying to her, I thought that was awesome, babe, versus me saying I felt so much joy about that. Because what happens is it activates joy in her brain, and it becomes a shared human experience, and it's bonding. And now we connected through that shared human experience. The same is true with hurt. If I say to her I felt hurt, it activates the pain region of her brain. And now it's a shared human experience, and we bond, we connect through that. So I really, really, really encourage people. It's a language of 8 words. You can remember these. And to learn those 8 core emotions, it's not wrong to say the other emotions, but the core emotions actually are far more connecting, more bonding than a whole bunch of these peripheral emotions.
I love that.
I finally got that said.
You did it.
Thank goodness.
I just needed to talk, and then you would remember.
There you go.
So that's super, super helpful. And so we actually end out every episode by doing our core emotion wheel. So if this is your very first time listening, we're about to show you what we've been talking about. And this is the 4-minute tool that Dr. Glenn and Phyllis created to help you learn how to identify the emotion that is happening for you, so you can train yourself to be able to identify it in the moment and process it quicker. How to process that emotion. There's a lot of stuff online right now about needing to process, but everyone's like, how do I do that? This tool is how you do it.
Exactly.
And now how to use your emotion to connect deeply in relationship. So this tool is like this 3-dimensional, super powerful, but simple thing that you created. It's beautiful.
And again, it's the exact equivalent, the exact parallel. If somebody says, well, how do I develop my biceps? And I don't ask that because I already have great biceps, but I'm just saying for other people. So,
Sorry.
wow, that was rude.
Sorry.
So much hurt. Not really. But if you're asking, how do I develop my biceps? Well, there are certain exercises. And if you're going to sit down and do, I don't know what those things are called, where you do your legs out in front of you, that's not going to develop your bicep.
Reflex,
This is not.
yeah.
Not because it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's not going to develop your bicep. So there's a certain way to exercise to develop this muscle. Well, we're training you. We're helping you to exercise your emotional muscles, because for the vast majority of us, they have atrophied so much that I have no idea when I feel hurt by her. I know something happened and I'm mad at her now, but I don't know. I'm not in touch with it, and I am now, but I wasn't 20, 25 years ago. So we're just exercising our emotional muscles so that we become more and more aware and tuned, because our goal is that this afternoon I'm able to, in the moment, which is the human condition, say to her, babe, I felt hurt by that thing that you just said.
Yeah. And so you're not walking around appearing angry because you're actually sad.
Yep.
You don't know what's happening with you. I know so often it's like, what's going on? I don't know. I don't know why I'm mad. You're actually probably not mad. You're probably fearful or sad or have shame. But this teaches you how to know that. So you can walk around in joy, which that just brought us all back together.
There you go.
Yes.
Circle all the way back around. Well, as you mentioned, we always end our episodes, and I guess we should acknowledge this one is a little shorter. We are so thankful for our listeners who write in questions, and we want to really acknowledge those questions, because sometimes we talk about, should we just do a bunch of questions in one episode, and it's like, well, no, we don't want to rush through. We really want to try to answer it in a way that will come back to you and be really helpful. So if you have questions and you're listening, please email us and at info@connectioncoach.co. We love your questions, and it may take a minute to get to them all, but we want to do these so that our listeners are getting the answers that they're looking for. And love that. And we do want to end by doing the wheel, and I was going to see if you would do the wheel.
I'll do the wheel. Yeah.
Joy.
Okay, I feel like I'm out of touch with my emotions today. Okay, we don't have it in front of us. I feel anger. I feel anger because we have been sick all summer. Yeah, I listened to one of our episodes not long ago, and I was like, this is going to be the best summer ever. And we have, since the day school let out, we've been sick. Someone in my house every single day. So I have anger in that. I have sadness because our friend has moved. Someone that I feel a soul and heart connection to isn't close by anymore, and I have a lot of sadness about that. I feel lonely because Wes is traveling right now. He is not home, and I just really like him a lot, and I miss him when he's gone. I feel hurt. I'm nervous to share this hurt, but this is what's coming up for me. I feel hurt because we haven't even got to talk about this yet. Someone left a comment on one of our videos saying that they wish I talked less.
Oh, sad.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
Wow.
I feel a lot of hurt about that because it was on an episode that was really vulnerable for me. It was something that I was processing with y'all. And man, I felt really, really hurt by that.
Yeah.
And I feel guilt because I didn't process that hurt with that person. I just commented back of like, well, yeah, thank you. Just trying to be kind and polite. And next time I will process and let someone know. Cool. So, so that was hard. And I have shame in that because it is really scary to get on and do this, and share our lives. And do people want me here? Just like it's made me question myself. So I do. I have a lot of shame now in that. It's amplified, the shame. I think that was 7. Now 8, joy. My joy is Wes Wages is out of town because he is pursuing his dream. And today he's just doing some bold, cool things with his life that I just have so much joy for him to pursue his dreams. Yeah. So lots and lots of joy. And being with y'all. We haven't got to do this, since May. We haven't sat down together. And so I have lots of joy being here with y'all.
Yay.
So that is it. Hopefully this has helped you. Thank you so much for being here. This is such a joy for us to be able to connect with our listeners. And if you are someone who's saying, I want more joy in my life, I would say make a list. Like, have a date night with your partner and make a list of the things that bring you joy with each other individually, and surround yourself with that. And then say it out loud. Every time you think you feel joy, say it. And that will teach you in the moment how to identify it and surround yourself by it. If you have not already left us a 5-star review, it is so easy to do, whether you're on Spotify or in your podcast app. All you have to do is click a button. And if you have a few minutes to leave us a few sentences of how this podcast has impacted you or helped you in your relationship, it absolutely means the world to us. And thank you so much. We do all of this because
you need this.
You deserve this.
So let's do this.
Let's do this.